This is dreadful.
I know, old boy. Keep your chin up, there's not much left to go now. He's slipping, Charlie. Charlie! Oh no.
Hey everyone, welcome to this installment of Northwestern Showcase, a series about my headcanons for the engines and my Roblox models for them. It's been a while, hasn't it? I apologize for not having this video out sooner. With college and other personal things going on, I really haven't been motivated to work on videos for a while. I won't promise anything yet, but I will try to have a few more videos out by next year. That being said, this episode of Northwestern Showcase is a little different from usual. I'd like to invite Tomo_the to this video to help narrate, so why don't we get started? I already knew that I wanted Edward to be a Furness Railway K2. Yeah, I know. I just really love how the K2s look. Very regal and old-timey looking. They were also designed to take over the Furness's more important trains that required stronger engines, which I think fits nicely into my headcanon for a young Edward who is full of himself and is a hot shot. Another basis that I considered was the Elinor D31 built by Holmes in the 1890s and rebuilt in between the 1920s and 30s. Other than the cab windows, this thing is very close to how Edward looks in the Railway series. This class was very close to becoming my Edward, but I favored having more locomotive diversity. And since Gordon and Henry were already going to be from the northeastern region, I chose my previous idea and Edward Mark I became a K2. However, I didn't stray too far away from Edward being a D31. Edward's rebuild is very much inspired by the D31 class in addition to the illustrations from the Railway series. As is no surprise to some of you, I am a sucker for the Gunvor illustrations. Something about them is just so lifelike and charming. I particularly loved their interpretation of Edward and James. I mean, just look at them. Now that everything was set, it was time to figure out the lore for him, which I will get into right now.
The Furness Railway K2s were built in the late 19th century, with 6 being built in 1896 and 2 more built in 1900. Number 36 is Edward. Before going to Sodor, Edward pulled passenger trains and even got to pull the Royal Train on one occasion. He would later arrive on Sodor to trial in 1914. Following some incidents, Edward would eventually be the second purchased engine on the Northwestern Railway, hence the number 2 that he received. Marin did mention in a previous video that there was an undisclosed engine that became the first engine purchased, but Marin wants to dedicate a video for him just like the rest of the other characters. He did write a book featuring the guy and Edward in studying engines, but that's 2 years old at this point and it's pretty outdated. Why am I reading it? It's not one of my videos, why am I reading it like this? Keep that one in, please. Edward remained as the main express engine until 1918 when Henry arrived, where he would then be moved to local passenger and goods. As the story goes, big engines from mainland companies came to the Northwestern Railway and took over Edward's duties. By 1919, Edward had been relegated as a spare engine, rarely ever coming down in the sheds. By 1920, however, after proving himself by covering for one of these engines and helping bank up an enormous goods train, Edward was soon reallocated on secondary duties while being temporary station pilot until Thomas took over.
Thanks, Tomo. So, skipping ahead to 1926, Edward was relocated again to the former Wellsworth and Sudbury Railway line to run services on what is now the Wellsworth branch line. Then, in 1952, Edward, who was now 56 at this point, was given a more than deserved overhaul at Crovens Gate Works, where he was given a new shape that he still wears to this day. There isn't much to be said about Edward after this. Other than the events of Edward's exploit, which happened in 1965, Edward is just cruising along. So now on to how I built Edward. Okay, so before I begin anything, let me just say that making Edward Mark II was a nightmare. Building Edward Mark I was simple enough. I just followed some diagrams of the K2 and then repainted him to Northwestern blue. Mark II though, I hated making Mark II. I went through 2 other Edwards to try and get the design right before scrapping them. I wanted to do the same thing and scrap the 3rd design, but I eventually stuck around with it to see how it went. I worked through making Edward's main body and then tender, and hey, he looks pretty nice. After that, what had to come next was making his damage condition from Edward's exploit. I chopped up the running board and went to work mangling up the side where Edward was damaged in. I first deleted the splasher attached to Edward's cap to make an entirely new shape to represent his damaged cab in the illustration. The mangling of the running board and cab was done using the Archimedes plugin, a tool I really recommend to beginning Roblox modelers who want to get into building. It's really convenient on making running boards, the shape of the cab, and among other things. I also broke his cab window and his cab handrail to finish the final touches before making him move. And yeah, that's Edward. He was a bit of a pain to make, but I think he turned out very much worth it in the end. Hey guys, Marin here. If you're sticking around for the credits, I just want to say thank you to Tom Odell for narrating Edward's driver and fireman, as well as for narrating the rest of his video. I also want to thank Nathan for helping me build some of the set that you saw in the beginning with Edward. And please just go check out their channels and what content they're making. They are super talented, and I promise that it will be worth your while. And as for me, I'm hoping that I can get another video in. While I'm working on the next installment for Northwestern Showcase, I will try and post some videos here and there, just so that you guys have some content to watch. Anyways, I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.